Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
People, welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast, the bonus edition. This week, we've got Josue Pavón with us. What's up, Josue?
What's going on, Sherrod, man? What's going on? How's everything?
Man, life is good. Life is good. Life is good. I'm thinking the same for you. I'm first of all, I'm glad you're on the show, especially with you having been through your first All-Star weekend.
Yes, yeah.
How'd it go? You made it back in one piece, so that's the positive. So how was it?
Right, that's always a good thing. Yeah, no, it was incredible, man. I had a lot of fun. It was just, as you can imagine, the first time you're going over there, it's a little overwhelming with everything going on. You want to catch everything, and you don't want to miss out on stuff. But man, I had a great time. It was just one of those like moments you'll always remember. But especially because the first day I get there, there's like a blizzard, which we knew we were gonna get some snow, but they got a good I'd say about maybe like 5 to 7 inches or so. But the thing was like, nobody plowed for like hours, Sherrod. So it was crazy to see them, all go into action while everyone's coming at the same time. Huge traffic jam, but luckily the Airbnb wasn't too far, so I was good.
Good. I'm glad you had a good time. For those of us who are watching from afar, we probably didn't have as good of an experience as you did. And I'm thinking about the All-Star game. I'm thinking about the slam dunk competition. I'm thinking about, pretty much the only thing that I think most people were inconsistent or felt that they universally liked was the Steph, the 3-point shooting contest,
man. Steph and Sabrina they delivered.
Sabrina, that was really cool. That was really cool. But other than that, I mean, was there anything else that you experienced that you can talk about and that you enjoyed?
Man, it's funny you say that, Sherrod, because I just felt the whole vibe was just about what's going on away from the events, and I feel like that's like a culture thing. I feel like that's something that's been going on for a while, and obviously you can see it in full force in the All-Star game. And that was probably my least favorite event of the whole weekend, and that's unfortunate because that's supposed to be the best part. It's supposed to be the reason why they all come together, as people say, the greatest pickup game in the world. And it was a snooze fest, man. No one's playing defense, man. Even this is the thing that got me, man. Even the fancy, the stuff that you want to see in the All-Star game, off the backboard dunks, off the dribble, it was sloppy. There were turnovers. There were guys joking around and stuff like that. And it's like, man, people came to see a show, and it's unfortunate. I know we revisit this conversation every single year, but to see it, for me, right, up close and personal for the first time, I was very disappointed, man. By the second half, I'm yawning, man. I'm ready to go. I'm dreaming about home, Sherrod. I'm dreaming about kicking it like I always do for All-Star Weekend with my pops, my brother. Mom's close by. She's checking in on, seeing us like, oh, what are you guys cheering about? Like the whole vibe. So, man, it was unfortunate. But outside of that, the dunk contest was cool. Man, I got a lot. I want to ask you what you thought about it, because the whole Jaylen Brown thing, the backlash that he's receiving, and then now everyone sees what he was trying to do with the alley-oop thing with the D Brown tribute, and I'm just like, you guys didn't see that from the very beginning? I mean, did you guys really think that he was trying to do like a salute at the end and do, you know what I mean? Like, clearly he wanted to do it midair. Clearly it was a terrible pass, botched effort, and we find out they never practiced, Sherrod. Of course it was going to come out like that. You got to practice something like that. And I just, man, look, call me old school or whatever, but I just think it's a disappointment, man, because it could have been a great moment for Tatum and Brown and the Celtics and the fans and all that. The court turned into the parquet and all that. And it was just a botched attempt, and it was sloppy, man. But, shout out to McClung. He was the right guy. I thought he put on a show. Yeah. I thought, honestly, altogether, it wasn't a awful, terrible performance the way everyone's saying, but I just think that was the one dunk that I think would have put it over the top for Jaylen, and he wouldn't have received all this smoke that he's been getting all week,
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that to me was most telling in that whole just kerfuffle there was the fact that Tatum didn't even take off this damn coat. I mean,
Right.
keeping it real, it was as
Yes.
if Tatum had called an Uber and was just like, okay, let me throw this alley-oop to him real quick. Well, and my Uber gonna be here in like 2 minutes. So I
You know
gotta
what
be ready
you
to
know what
go.
that coat is, Sherrod? You know what that jacket is? That's the ultimate, I got somewhere to be after this coat. Like
Yes.
that's
I
the
got
ultimate.
somewhere I'd rather be than be here. And that to me, that
Yeah.
Jason Tatum, I thought really just that whole vibe, I think summed up how most people were feeling about the game. Like, I'm gonna watch this, but I really don't want to be here.
Right,
And
right.
the fact that my man Jalen had literally competed with guys who are not in his league, literally
Yep.
not in his league. And by that, I mean, like, not NBA. They're not roster NBA players.
Yep.
You go,
That's
there's
true, man.
450 damn near
Right.
players in the NBA, and he had
Yeah.
to compete against guys who maybe number 498 through
Yeah,
652.
man.
And it's
I recorded an episode with Max, and Max is like, man, a G Leaguer won it, man. A G Leaguer won back to back. And I'm like, man, if you look at the rest of the contestants, they weren't that far off from being a
right.
quote unquote G Leaguer. The
Yeah, I mean,
whole
it was,
listen,
yeah.
I give props to Jalen because not only did he go out there and do it and take a risk, I guess, because think about it, all-stars, they don't do this, right? But he personified those dunks, Rod, man. I thought that was super cool. The tribute to Terrence Clark, I thought was one of his best dunks of the night. The lob from or not the lob, I should say, the assist from Donovan Mitchell was probably his best dunk. But yeah, man, I just thought that was a great moment for Tatum. And listen, maybe Tatum just said, look, this is your moment. I don't want to, because to me it seems like the whole, like, if we don't do this, they're gonna say stuff. So can you just come out here? Can we just look? You can get back to your night. Just throw me a lob.
All
And
right, but my Uber gonna be here in 2 minutes, JB.
right. And
Just
then
so you know. Let's hurry
Tatum
this
giving me
up.
all like, come on, Jalen, like for real, like no, my fault. Oh, yo, real quick, you just throw it up, just put it right there, Like, that's the vibe I got, Sherrod. And like right after it, you knew they didn't spend a lot of time on it. My guess was maybe 10, 15, and then we find out they spent 0 minutes
I
on
was
that
gonna say
dunk.
10, 15 was that was on the long side.
Right. Because normally, actually, that's a good point, because normally some of the greatest dunks, that's how many times they practice, because they just want to, they have it down, they have it exactly what they want to see, different cues, and then I don't know, man. I'm not obviously I'm not a dunk master over here, far from it, but I just think something like that, right? You got to put some time into it, man. You got to put some time in it. So look, I don't want to go down the whole like the dynamic of the relationship, all that, whatever. None of that really matters to me, in a sense, for this contest. I just wanted them to have that moment. I thought it would have been really special for both of them to have that.
Get your buckets with your first bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams, quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
But yeah.
Well, we're gonna move on from that weekend and look. We're gonna look ahead to the future.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
The Celtics, at the time of this recording, the Celtics have already beaten the Chicago Bulls, which we knew they would. And there were some highlights, there were some not so great moments, but the Celtics, they did what they're supposed to do. And I'm posing this question to you because looking at their schedule the rest of the way, this is not going to be the only lightweight team that they gotta have to deal with.
Yeah.
And this seemed like a game where they jumped on them early, realized, oh yeah, this team is not that good, and then they ease up the gas, like, oh, but if we ease up, they might make this a game. Okay, let's flip it back and let's go at them again, and they get a double-digit win. Is this basically what we can expect to see from the Celtics? That teams that they should just absolutely annihilate, there's going to be a little bit of up and down before they eventually take over and just put teams away?
Yeah, I think so, Sherrod, man. This is just a pattern. This is kind of who they are right now. I mean, like, listen, the next couple of weeks I think will be very telling because coming off the All-Star break, coming off this narrative, obviously, and shout out to Joe Mazzulla because he's already built this thing in months ago, saying like, hey, listen, you're not supposed to go in there and just beat a team. You're not supposed to just look at the calendar and say, oh, that's the W. He's relayed that message over and over again, and I think that's great because that's a obviously you look at what happened last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, look, you could go down 3-0 real quick or 0-3 real quick, right, Sherrod? So I think that instills the right message. But man, going out there and doing it, it's a whole nother thing. So I think Gates, to see that happen, briefly with that Bulls matchup, especially because it went from what was it, 14-point lead to like a 3-point lead really quickly. So it was like a quick message for them, and they picked up on it. And obviously they got there with a win. But yeah, I just wonder how many of those games though we're gonna see a different story. Especially when the 3-point shot is not falling. And listen, they have to get into this habit now because this is what's gonna that momentum going into the playoffs, man. I think is relevant, man. Look what happened with the Miami Heat last year, and they rode that wave. But with the Celtics, man, my thing is late game, execution, fourth quarter. What's going to happen if the game's close? A lot of the times I want to see them mix in Kristaps Porzingis. We talked about this a lot in the Celtics postgame show, where I just feel like whether it's getting him his touches down low or just making sure he's more involved sometimes, I think makes things easier for Tatum and Brown, obviously, but also everyone else as well. But how they get out of those situations, I think is going to be super telling for this team, especially in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and the Chicago game was once again a victory that the Celtics, you never really felt that they weren't in control of the game, even when it got a little tight. You still felt as though they were clearly they were the better team, but clearly they
Right.
never lost control. But you start looking at the schedule, they got some serious squads that are looking to knock them off that top perch and have the talent to potentially do that. Who are some of the contenders you see in the East outside of Boston? Teams that could give them a run for their money in a best of seven, if they're fortunate enough to meet each other.
Man, um, the Knicks are interesting, man. I mean, I know they're a little banged up right now, but when they're put together, man, like with OG, I think that could be a really interesting, like a really competitive series. With that being said, I still think the Celtics should win that series. I don't think it's one of those like coin flip type situations, but could I see them forcing game 7 or so? Absolutely. I mean, if Brunson really gets going and all those other guys, I just think at the end of the day, the Celtics should be able to finish the series off. But I do think they can make things interesting for sure. And then I'm still thinking about the Miami Heat. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's like, man, you always got to worry about Miami every single year. But this year, I'm a little worried about Miami a little bit. I mean, you just wonder what kind of tricks they have up their sleeves that they can pull up on the fly. And Eric Spoelstra, man, let's face it, man, he coached circles around Joe Mazzulla last year. I know this year is different. I know the Celtics won the season series and all that, but I mean, that's not going to be the same team you see. I mean, we got a little glimpse of it in the last matchup with Terry Rozier making his debut and all that, and then both these guys got hurt. They still made it interesting at the end. You just wonder how that bench and that second unit is going to come together because they could be one of the deeper teams in the postseason. But yeah, I mean that outside of those two, I mean, you want to mention Milwaukee, but I gotta see it, man. Like I just there's so many question marks with the way that they're defending, the holes that they've had, the problems that they've had all season long. They never really addressed the Drew Holiday, defensive backcourt. I mean, what direction is Doc Rivers going to go in with Beasley in terms of like the wing position? How are you going to use, So I mean, I'm going to reserve judgment for that team right now, but I guess they're somewhat lingering. But right now, I just think head to head, those are the two teams that really stick out to me. Looking ahead, if we're seeing into the future how things will be pieced together and all that, I think the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks could really have some strong momentum going to the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those are good picks. I would add Milwaukee to the mix only because I don't think they're as good as they've been in the past couple of years. And it's crazy to think that with Dame
Right.
Lillard, but Dame Lillard is a
Right.
defensive liability. There's just no way getting around that. And as great a scorer as he is, there are going to be games where he's not going to have that ability to impact it at the level he's accustomed to. And the
Right.
Celtics have the ability to send multiple defenders. I mean, if you're playing Milwaukee and the Celtics and you got your full healthy roster, Drew Holiday is going to be on that some. Jaylen Brown's going to be on that some. Peyton Pritchard will probably be on that some. Tatum may be switched out, which the Celtics have no issue with that happening as well.
Right.
Pretty much everyone on your team who is and Derek White certainly is going to be on that. And I don't anticipate him being able to impact the game the way he's accustomed to when you've got not one, but two all NBA defenders that you're going to have to deal with.
Yep.
And you're going to have to deal with one of them at the other end because they can score the ball too. They're not just one side of the floor success stories. They can play both ends of the floor. So Milwaukee is a team that I would keep them in that conversation as a potential team that could give the Celtics problems. But I put them probably near the back end of that group only because I just don't
Man.
think Doc
Yep.
Rivers has that Doc Rivers mojo that can all of a sudden turn Damian Lillard from, basically just a walking easy pass when it comes to defense
Yeah, man.
into something
It's like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe,
yeah,
maybe
but the
you could
dude
convince him or
at this
you
point,
could, change that part about him. But right now,
yeah, guys
yeah,
don't change. I mean, guys been in the league as long as him don't change.
exactly.
They are exactly who you think they are, and they ain't trying to change, and they're not trying to change.
They're not trying to change, right? They're
No,
just trying to enhance on what they've known,
no.
all along. Absolutely.
Now, let's say the Celtics get out of the East, which I expect them to do. Who do you think are the teams they should be most worried about out West? Because it seems like out in the Western Conference, there's really like 3, 4, 5 different teams that all can make a claim for we're the best in the West. But at
Right.
the end of the day, who do you think? Who do you think are the teams that forget about who's going to come out? Who do you think gives the Celtics the most problems if they were to emerge out of the Western Conference?
I think
And
it's
you
the
better not
Nuggets,
say the
man.
Lakers.
No, no, absolutely not. Oof. I wonder how this story ends, man. How this season ends, man. I swear it's like a show, like a soap opera. But no, I mean, listen, the Denver Nuggets, man, the returning champions, man. Like I just they're that team that's just going to give the Celtics fits. I think they can match up well. The athleticism they can get back. Jokic, would be the best player in the series. And yeah, they just seem that they're that type of team that if they get to the finish line, if they're right there, they can that would be one heck of a series, man. I want to say the Celtics would be the favorite in that series, but I don't know. Right now, I'm probably giving it to Denver, honestly. You know, Celtics right there, number 2, but the absolute like best team to win it or best odds, I guess. I know Vegas to say something different, but I still say it's Denver right now. I mean, by a little bit or whatever. But in the best of 7 series, man, that's easily the toughest matchup for the Celtics.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've got experience. They've got a player that no one can really match up with, and they've been there, done it. They know what the mountaintop
Right.
looks like because they've been there. So Denver's a team I definitely worry about. I worry about the Clippers too, because it seems like this is as close to as we've seen the Clippers to kind of figuring out how to have their superstar core players be effective
Yeah,
playing together.
this
They
stretch
worry
going
me a
into
little bit.
going to the All-Star too. Yeah, they really found the stride.
Yeah. And so for them,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see who kind of comes out of the West because I think there are a handful of teams that really can make a strong case for being that team. But when it comes to being that guy, the Celtics added Xavier Tillman, that third or fourth big, depending on where you put Luke Lemon Squares in your big
X-Men.
man pecking order. But they added Xavier Tillman from from Memphis. And what he saw his first action with the Celtics against Chicago, played limited minutes coming off the bench. What are your early impressions of Tillman?
Man, he's got some size. I mean, I guess I knew that already about him, but to see him, get in the game a little bit, get his first action, I just I want him to be that guy where when he goes in there, man, he just pisses people off. Whether that means just from like grabbing it, to being excessive and grabbing the rebounds, being that showing that physicality down low. I just think that's the kind of muscle this second unit could really use on a secondary basis. Obviously if someone's in foul trouble, or he has to eat up some extra minutes, and if his momentum's going, if he's grabbing 4 or 5 rebounds in that first stint, then we'll see how he adapts for sure. But the way he's been welcomed with open arms, I think has been really cool, man. I don't think it's just lip service either. Luke Cornett, I mean, shout out to Bobby Manning for asking, but he's like, hey, does that motivate you a little bit to go out there and kind of? He's like, no, man, like that's just another person that can add another, that's another personality that can really make the Celtics harder to defend, even deeper team in the postseason if he's able to really find some minutes in Joe Mazzulla's depth chart. So I think that's really cool, and I really do think he fits kind of what they need, that little extra insurance, that little extra muscle to come in and off that bench.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they the thing that I liked about Tillman in the action against Chicago was that basically everything he did felt natural. Like usually when guys are on the floor for that first time with a new team, there's this thought process that they're going through where they're doing more thinking about what they're going to do as opposed to just playing. And he didn't seem to have that issue. We talked about it on the Garden Report, the other night after the Chicago game, that Tillman seemed as if not only did he belong, but that he knew exactly how to make sure that everyone knew he belonged by just simply not thinking about what he was doing. I mean, he was out there making good plays defensively. He had a bucket. He was moving well without the ball. He set good screens. He did pretty much everything that he has been charged with or expected to do. And the other thing about Tillman that makes him, I think, an ideal NBA role player, you go back and look at his numbers in high school, he never averaged more than like 16, 17 points a game. And you got cats coming out of high school who get you 16, 7 points a game in the first quarter. This is what he did in a game. And so to me, he's a guy that understands the concept of having a very definitive niche role with a team. And understand that that's your role. Don't trip. Don't act like you don't know what your role is. This is what you're supposed to do. And he got a bucket. He did a decent job on the boards. He did a good job defending, and it's just like this is exactly what this team needed when they needed it. And so I'm real excited to see what he's going to do for the Celtics, because I do think he's going to get some opportunities. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about him was, when you talk about opportunities, obviously there's those minutes that are going to Luke Cornett. Now, what do you now between now and the playoffs? Which do you think is more likely, that he will get Luke's minutes, he'll get a portion of Luke's minutes, or he'll get Luke's minutes on a case by case, very specific matchup basis?
I think it'll be on a case by case basis, and don't be surprised if it's one of those like Luke's out there for 3-4 minutes and Joe's like, wait a minute, this isn't working. He just yanks him. You don't see him again, like, because he's prone to do something like that. Joe's really, when he's really into the game and he sees something that's not working, and Tillman's the type of guy, like you just said, Sherrod, he can adapt. He will adapt on the fly. I don't think he's one of those guys who can, gets in there, gets eager, foul trouble and all that. He's gonna set hard screens. He's gonna get you a couple of rebounds. So he's going to make himself obviously productive when he can. So I think it'll be on a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's one of those where, you're not going to see Luke at all, and then all of a sudden he's just thrust into the depth chart, or at least one of the last players coming off of it. I don't think it'll be something like that. But, yeah, I think it'll be on a case-by-case basis, and especially in the best-of-7 series. One of the tougher matchups, whether it's the Milwaukee Bucks or whether, one of those matchups where you need to someone in the front court just kind of throw a little extra and just a little intimidation down low. And I think that's when you'll see Tillman more than you'll see Cornett, for sure.
Yeah. I the thing about Tillman that we don't have a true sense for, and I don't know if we ever will, and I don't think Xavier's going to have a sense of either, is the trust factor. Joe Mazzulla is not easily trusting his players. It takes some time. I mean, hell, Grant Williams, he's not here in part because Joe never got that level of trust.
I was gonna say,
Yeah. As much as we want to keep going on about Xavier, because I do think he's a guy that's going to help them win some games. There's another guy they got, Jaden Springer, former first-round pick, played 1 year at Tennessee, was with the Sixers. Didn't put up big numbers or hell any numbers because he didn't play much with Philly. But in the G League, he did lead that team, their G League team, to a championship, and he was G League Finals MVP. So he has, relatively speaking, stepped up and played his best basketball in postseason type situation. Unfortunately for him, he's probably not going to get that opportunity in Boston this year. I don't anticipate seeing much of him at all. Which is a little bit disappointing because I do think that his athleticism can give them something that they could absolutely benefit from. But I think more than anything, they're just looking at him as a player of significance or importance down the road, more so than in the moment.
Yeah, I think so. I think so for sure. Especially with the way things are going with JD Davison. I mean, on the court, it seems like, he got the All-Star selection from the G League and all that, but it seems like, I don't know if it's a personal thing or whatever, but he didn't attend the All-Star game in Indianapolis. No word on why, but he was selected. He was, suspended from the team and all that. And you just wonder where he is in his progression compared to someone like this, where you can, plug into a G League season in Maine, and who knows, maybe next year he blossoms into someone that could be a significant playmaker or secondary playmaker for this team moving forward. As of right now, I like what Peyton Pritchard is doing. Hopefully, some consistency. My thing with is like, I feel like it's like all or nothing. Like, I know the Pritchard out there will be like, oh man, like, you guys are too hard on him. I wasn't one of those guys who's like, you got to go ahead and replace Pritchard, but I'm hoping we can see more of this, just consistent production, and that doesn't always have to be double figures and scoring. That doesn't always have to be giving 3 3-pointers every single night. No, just consistency across the board. He's been kind of filling up the stat sheet when he can and giving you some of that defense as well. That's making him even all the more valuable, I feel like, on that end of the floor. So
yeah, who's the one
Pritchard's a big part of that.
Yeah. Who's the one Celtics player that when you look at this team and the chance of winning a championship, who's the one player that has to kind of emerge as a core piece of that title run right now? Who's your guy?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. I mean, not that he has to, but it would really solidify the run. I'm gonna say Jrue Holiday. And what I mean by that is, like, just in terms of like putting it all together in one of the like couple of those like big playoff performances. I think that's someone who I got my eye on, but I don't think it's one of those where it's like, man, if he doesn't step up, this team's in trouble. But like, just the way you worded it, I think that's the best way to put it. Like, that's probably my guy. But like, in terms of like bench production, I mean, like, I guys like Hauser and Pritchard, I'm just looking for them to be solid, just be consistent. Kind of like what I was saying about Pritchard. Same thing goes for Hauser and guys like someone like Al Horford, man. Like, we know what he does in the postseason. It's clearly his production's gone down in somewhat, but that role he's thriving in right now, I don't expect that to change, man. I just think he's been huge to the team.
Absolutely. We're gonna head out after this. But before we break out, I want to just say thanks to our sponsors. This episode of the Big Three NBA Podcast is brought to you by Indeed.com, HelloFresh, and our good friends at FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston. And new customers get $150, smackaroos, whatever you want to call it, dollars in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Josue, you go by many names. Josue Pavón, appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you coming on for the podcast. And like I said, let the folks know where they can check your workout, Mr. Pavón.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Check me out. Follow me on Twitter at Joe_Sway, Joe_SWAY. All my stuff on Twitter, of course, and CLNS Media on YouTube, and all that good stuff, man. Cedric Maxwell podcast as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. Brand new episodes out. Always giving you some new content, especially gearing up for this, end of the regular season, going into the postseason. We'll have some really fun guests coming up, man. So yeah, Cedric Maxwell podcast for sure. And appreciate you, Sherrod. You know, you guys already know Celtics post game show. Check us out after each and every Celtics game, right here on CLNS Media. Man, we go live.
Absolutely, we in there. We are in there.
Sure.
And now we are out of here. For Josue Pavón, Sherrod Blakely, the Big Three NBA podcast. Thanks for checking us out. We will see ya.